I think it's fair to say that no one can stand the star of this movie.
Rachel Zegler is extraordinarily woke, but she's woke in a way that's quite deranged.
And it just goes to show you exactly why she is so universally rejected right now.
People are like, oh wow, Snow White flopped. Who is surprised? You cast arguably the least genuine, most out of touch, and disliked person in her industry, and her industry is Hollywood. And the bad guy is Gal Gadot.
I know this point has been made, but this truly is the worst casting maybe in the history of the film industry.
I would highly advise that you boycott this film, no matter how much your children love Snow White.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button. I don't need your business.
When Rachel Zegler first appeared on the big screen, critics hailed her as the next big thing. She had the voice, the charisma, and a story that felt like pure Hollywood magic. Yet here we are, watching her Snow White adventure descend into chaos, complete. With outcry from fans, suspicious studio silence, and even a biting parody by The Simpsons that might just be the final nail in her cinematic coffin, Rachel's career began like a fairy tale. After winning acclaim in West Side Story, she seemed destined for the ultimate Hollywood crown. The starring role in Disney's live-action Snow White, it was a massive opportunity. For a brief moment, it felt like a done deal. Snow White wasn't just another remake, it was one of the longest-reigning staples of the Disney empire, a story so ingrained in pop culture that it practically guaranteed success. But it started with a few offhand remarks. Rachel casually referred to the original 1937 Snow White film as weird and outdated.
I just mean that it's no longer 1937. She's gonna be saved by the prince, and she's not gonna be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be. And
going so far as to call the animated prince a stalker. Fans saw these comments as arrogant and ungrateful. Suddenly, Rachel wasn't just the rising star. She was the face of a grand Disney reimagining that nobody had asked for. While the original fairy tale centers on love and a dash of timeless magic, Rachel's statement suggested an entirely different perspective, one where the story's timeless charm needed a drastic overhaul. Critics asked whether these interviews were part of a new marketing strategy, but the more she spoke, the clearer it became that these words weren't scripted talking points. They felt personal, reflecting her own view of the role that many fans found insulting to the legacy of Snow White. Hashtags like "Not My Snow White" and "Girl Boss" Snow White trended for days, with some praising the modern twist and others showing the perceived disrespect for the original film. One viral tweet bluntly declared, "If she hates the classic so much, why is she even doing this movie?" As if Rachel's interviews weren't enough, Disney's decision to replace the iconic seven dwarfs with so-called magical creatures ignited another round of controversy.
They're remaking the movie, they just got rid of the dwarfs. Okay,
but what do they call them?
Why would they get rid of the dwarves though?
Magical creatures.
But they have one token dwarf amongst these magical creatures. You actually just went backwards. You actually just erased the dwarfism side of it. The disability, like we're a disability group, you just erase that whole image.
Overnight, fan favorite characters that had defined the original animation were cast aside. Initially, actor Peter Dinklage had raised concerns about stereotypes in the dwarf's portrayal.
The argument should have been from Peter Dinklage, there's power of being on TV, there's power of television, and to put 7 people with dwarfism on camera in a major Disney movie, there's still power there. If the story is offensive, change the story, don't change the characters.
Rather than reimagining them more thoughtfully, Disney swapped them out entirely. This attempt to appear progressive backfired spectacularly. Many in the dwarfism community felt pushed aside. The dwarfs had been part of a special childhood story for millions. Even Peter Dinklage himself seemed perplexed by Disney's choice, suggesting that highlighting diverse actors could have been an empowering move. Instead, the new approach drew a spotlight on the very thing Disney claimed to be avoiding. Rachel, still at the epicenter of the controversy, found her name tied to these discussions. Her interviews on the subject didn't exactly clarify Disney's reasoning. Fans accused her of being condescending when addressing the dwarf's removal, and the discussion turned into questions about the entertainment industry's handling of representation. The film was being reshaped into something unrecognizable. Rachel continued to appear at various events, trying to champion her modern Snow White.
That audiences walk away from this film with an understanding of the true meaning of fairness, of what it means to be fair in this world. There is a message that's been carried on for almost 90 years now from the original animated classic. That is, fairness is what is within. Fairness is to do with your heart, the way you treat the people around you, and it has nothing to do with what you she look like, and that's the misunderstanding between Snow White and the evil queen. I think it's such an important message, and the way that Disney has elevated it and brought it to this new audience is very special.
But the more she insisted that 1937's version was too old-fashioned, the louder the public outcry grew. Meanwhile, Disney seemed strangely quiet, leaving Rachel to face the fire, fueling suspicion that behind the scenes, executives were perhaps looking for a graceful exit from the mess. In interview after interview, Rachel's energy began to shift from celebratory to defensive. She tried to explain that the film was about women's empowerment, about a princess who saves herself rather than waiting for rescue. But fans couldn't reconcile with the dismissive attitude they perceived in her interviews.
This is someone who is as entitled as, I don't need your business. You know what? Maybe Disney does. Maybe you're a tool, you're a pawn in this film. You didn't write it, you didn't direct it. You have nothing to do with the creation of Snow White. Right. You should shut up and do the...
There's something wrong with her. She's disturbed, she's unhappy, and she thinks it's about feminism and the patriarchy and about abortion. But the reality is she's just not stable, like the majority of people in Hollywood. They're just not stable human beings.
Rachel Zegler just keeps making things worse with the Walt Disney Company. The more that she tries to defend this movie, the more that she tries to spew her agenda onto the general public, it's only making matters worse. Not just for Bob Iger, but for whatever is left of the image of Disney as a whole.
And a wave of criticism flowed from every corner of the internet. Still, Disney offered no public comment to calm the storm. Rumors emerged out of all ends. Some insiders whispered that the studio dreaded the possibility of a box office flop, but had invested too much to back down. Others speculated that Rachel was simply hard to handle during events, creating a PR mess that no one wanted to manage. What happened next was a cultural shock. Over the years, The Simpsons has lampooned nearly every celebrity meltdown and scandal, from politicians to pop stars. Their newest jab was during an episode entitled Snow Woke the Reimagining. Fictional film within the show depicts a Rachel Zegler princess rewriting fairy tale lore, banning princes, and delivering speeches to confused villagers, while ticket sales plummet. In typical Simpsons fashion, the satire is sharp, direct, and not hidden in the slightest. The lead actress in their parody is portrayed as caught up in her own grand mission to modernize the story that she loses sight of what made the fairy tale beloved to begin with. The episode's climax features the star's public meltdown on a late-night show, eerily mirroring the chatter around Rachel's defensive interviews. Fans on social media wasted no time drawing parallels, sharing clips and screenshots with captions like, "It's official, The Simpsons just buried Rachel Zegler's Snow White." Rachel was already contending with negative buzz from fans.
I can also be having the greatest time and simultaneously wishing people would stop sending me death threats.
Lukewarm, support from Disney, and mounting chatter about whether she'd be replaced in future projects. Having America's longest-running animated sitcom lampoon the very controversy she was trying to mitigate felt like a knockout punch. When Snow White finally hit theaters, it landed with a crashing thud. Despite Disney's brand recognition, the movie struggled to claim a solid audience.
I am walking into Snow White, 2 p.m. Now seating. Let's see how empty it is. I hope it's off the woke we go. I hope. Sound like I hear a couple of people. One, two. Okay. 2.
Some who saw it admitted it wasn't quite the disaster the internet had painted, but others left the cinema feeling alienated. The film's IMDb rating bottomed out at 1.6, an astonishing low for a Disney project. The negative word of mouth spread like wildfire.
I just want to tell you guys about a incredible movie that just came out, Snow White. Wow. I just got to tell you, best movie I've seen in years, and there have been some really good films lately. Madam Web, Rebel Moon Part 1, that movie, that transgender one with the Mexican drug lord. But Snow White blows them all away. Chat, this movie has everything. Horrifying, CGI, little people, check. A feminist princess who don't need no man, double check. Diddy dance party at the end, double Diddy check. All this to say, go see Snow White right now. The new one. Not that old stupid one where the princess gets saved by some good upstanding guy.
Social media turned the flop into a pastime, with users claiming entire rows were empty on opening weekend. One popular post joked about Snow White and the Zero Dwarfs in the audience. Another stunt involved an AI-generated OnlyFans profile falsely using Rachel's likeness, which racked up followers in mere hours. Though quickly debunked as fake, it highlighted the chaotic state of her public persona. On a personal level, the strain was becoming evident. Rachel had reportedly split from her longtime partner, with sources close to them suggesting the constant negativity played a role in their breakup. For someone as young and relatively new to Hollywood as Rachel, it was a recipe for emotional mayhem.
When I win, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her. And I can only hope that despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
She tried posting lighthearted videos on social media, referencing self-care and gratitude, but the comments were brutal. The story had metastasized into something beyond anyone's control. Then came the rumors that Rachel was quietly being let go from future Disney endeavors. Insiders alleged she'd been removed from a voiceover role for an upcoming Toy Story spin-off.
One thing about Snow White in particular has a lot to do with Rachel Zegler's firing situation. We already talked about how she was let go from various projects by the Walt Disney Company, including doing voiceover work for Toy Story.
And that certain cameo appearances were reassigned to other rising stars. Officially, nothing was confirmed, but in Hollywood, silence can speak volumes. Friends and former colleagues murmured about Rachel becoming a PR liability, the sort of phrase that can kill a career overnight. Public image matters, and in a business that often values likability as much as talent, her repeated missteps were her downfall. Some suggested she take a hiatus, rebrand herself, maybe even re-emerge in a smaller indie film to rebuild critical goodwill. Others argued she should double down on her modern, outspoken persona and ignore the haters. Meanwhile, the fans who once cheered her performance in West Side Story began to distance themselves. The shift in public sentiment wasn't just about the Snow White fiasco, it was about trust. In an age where social media can make or break a star, she found herself trending for more wrong reasons than right ones. Rachel Zegler's bright future seemed destined to shine for years, yet in the span of a single film release, she stumbled into one controversy after another. High-profile parodies from The Simpsons rarely come without a price, and hers was steep. Hollywood adores redemption arcs, but they require careful planning, humility, and time away from the spotlight. 3 things Rachel may not be willing to embrace. Maybe she'll lean into the controversy, fueling debates about modernizing old fairy tales and forging a brand as a fearless agitator. One thing is certain, the audience is still watching. The next chapter belongs to Rachel Zegler alone, and whether she manages a triumphant comeback or fades into darkness is anyone's guess. That, perhaps, is the real ending to this saga, a cliffhanger that reminds us all just how thin the line can be between Hollywood's newest big star and the next. Cautionary tale.
And we part with this video of Rachel Zegler alone in a theater watching herself.